Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. The cruel thing my wife did was sit there while her father insulted my family name. And then she quietly entertained his plan to erase it from our son's life like it was a reasonable compromise. Here's how it happened. I'm Adrian Cole, a black man raised in Prince George's County, Maryland, where people might not have money, but they have pride and they have memories. In my family, your name is not a decoration, it is a record. It holds the stories you don't put on social media. The overtime, the second jobs, the evictions you survived, the promises you kept when nobody was watching. My father taught me that a man's calm is not weakness. And my mother taught me that dignity is something you guard like you guard a child. I met my wife, Vanessa Whitfield, at a community fundraiser in Largo. She worked in property management, polished and organized, the kind of person who always had gum in her purse and a backup plan in her head. I was running operations for a regional logistics company in Landover, the kind of job where you learn to solve problems quietly and keep your voice steady when everyone else panics. Vanessa told me she liked stability. I believed her. We dated for 2 years, got married in Upper Marlboro, and moved into a townhouse in Bowie that felt like proof we were building something lasting. The first sign of trouble wasn't a dramatic blow-up. It was a pattern. Vanessa's father, Raymond Whitfield, always positioned himself like the head of our table, even when he was a guest. He talked over me the way certain men do when they think their suit makes them the authority. He had money, connections, and a deep belief that love was a hierarchy. At first, I told myself he just needed time. A lot of families have a gatekeeper. I thought if I stayed respectful, he would eventually relax and see that I wasn't trying to take anything from them. Raymond didn't relax. He escalated, but in small ways that were easy for Vanessa to dismiss. He would forget my name and call me Aaron or Andre and then smile like it was a joke. He would ask what I did for work, then stare blankly when I answered like operations meant nothing unless it came with a fancy title. He'd mention his friends who were attorneys and developers, then look at me like I was a contractor he hadn't paid yet. Vanessa would squeeze my hand under the table, but she never corrected him out loud. The real issue wasn't Raymond alone. It was Vanessa's relationship with his approval. When Raymond spoke, Vanessa became smaller, softer, eager. She was a grown woman who handled tenants, budgets, deadlines. But around her father, she moved like she was still 12, still auditioning for praise. I understood loyalty. I respected my family. But I didn't respect a marriage where my role was to absorb disrespect so someone else could keep peace. I tried to talk to Vanessa about it one night after a dinner in Bowie, where her father had made another joke at my expense. She told me I was reading too much into it. Then we had our son, Jordan, and something in Raymond sharpened. It was like the baby wasn't just a child. It was a legacy vehicle Raymond wanted to drive. Jordan had my eyes and Vanessa's smile. He was quiet, observant, the kind of kid who watched adults before he spoke. The first time Raymond held him, he didn't say, "He's beautiful," or "He's healthy." He said, "He's a Whitfield if you raise him right." I laughed politely because I didn't want to start a fight over a comment. But I felt it like a hand closing around something that wasn't his. Over the next year, Raymond's visits became inspections. He walked through our living room like he was evaluating the furniture. He asked where Jordan would go to school, what neighborhood we would eventually move into, whether we planned to upgrade our life. Vanessa would light up, promising him things we hadn't agreed on. When I'd challenge it later, privately, she'd say, "He's just talking," or "It's not that serious." But it always became serious when Raymond wanted something. And the moment I pushed back, Vanessa acted like I was the one causing drama. The Sunday everything broke happened in a house in Bowie that was full of food and people and 4 smiles. Vanessa invited her parents for dinner, plus her aunt and 2 cousins. I made ribs, mac and cheese, greens, cornbread, the kind of meal my mother taught me to cook because hospitality is how we show love. Jordan was at the table with crayons, drawing cars. Vanessa wore a soft yellow dress, moving around the kitchen like she wanted the night to go perfectly. Raymond came in loud, kissing Vanessa's cheek, calling Jordan my boy, then shaking my hand like he was doing me a favor. At first, it was normal conversation, work, traffic, school zones. Then Raymond's tone shifted, casual like he was discussing weather. He asked, "So what last name are you putting on Jordan's school documents?" "Cole." He said my last name slowly, like it was unfamiliar. I told him yes. "Cole. Same as mine." Raymond leaned back in his chair and smiled at the ceiling, like he was waiting for laughter. "That name doesn't open doors," he said. "It doesn't mean anything in the rooms that matter. Vanessa married down, but we can still save the child." The room didn't go silent in a dramatic way. It went quiet in the way people get when they don't want to pick a side. Vanessa's aunt stared at her plate. One cousin pulled out her phone and pretended to scroll. Jordan looked up at me, confused by the tension. I felt heat rise behind my eyes, but I kept my face still. I said, "My name is not a problem to solve." Raymond waved his hand like I was interrupting him. "I'm just being honest," he said. "Whitfield is a name with weight." Then he turned to Vanessa and said, "We can fix this before it becomes permanent." I waited for Vanessa. I waited for her to say, "That's my husband," or "Stop talking about him like that." Instead, she did the one thing that broke my trust clean in half. She sighed, like I was the difficult one, and said, "Dad, not tonight. Not don't say that. Not apologize. Just not tonight." As if the insult was acceptable, only poorly timed. Raymond smirked. That smirk told me everything. He knew she wouldn't choose me in front of him. He knew he could say anything and still be protected. After they left, I stood in the kitchen staring at a counter full of plates and crumbs, feeling like my home had been invaded and my wife had held the door. Vanessa came behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist like she could solve it with softness. I stepped away. She asked why I was taking it so personally. I told her it was personal because it was my family name. She said he's old school. He wants what's best for Jordan. I asked her what was best about humiliating the man raising Jordan. Vanessa's eyes hardened. "You always have to make things a battle," she said. That sentence sat in my chest like a stone. For weeks after, Raymond acted like nothing happened. He sent Vanessa listings for homes in nicer areas. He sent her articles about legacy and family branding. He started referring to Jordan as Little Whitfield in text messages. Vanessa didn't correct him. One night, I looked over her shoulder and saw her typing back, laughing at something he wrote. I asked her why she was playing along. She snapped, "Stop policing my relationship with my father." I told her it wasn't about policing. It was about protecting our son from being used to disrespect me. Vanessa stared at me, then said, "You're insecure. I tried therapy first, just us, not a spectacle." I suggested counseling in Greenbelt with a black therapist who understood the weight of family and pride without turning it into a performance. Vanessa agreed, but she treated the sessions like a chore. When a therapist asked her why she didn't defend me, Vanessa said, "I just don't like conflict." The therapist asked, gently, "Is avoiding conflict worth sacrificing your husband's dignity?" Vanessa didn't answer directly. She said, "Adrian can handle himself." That was the problem. In her mind, my strength meant I didn't deserve protection. The next betrayal came disguised as paperwork. Vanessa came home one evening with a folder, moving too carefully, eyes too focused. She set it on the kitchen island like it was a gift. "My dad talked to someone," she said. "It's not a big deal, but he drafted something." I opened the folder and saw a document about changing Jordan's last name to Whitfield. Not hyphenating, not a conversation starter. A full plan, printed, highlighted, with sticky notes on the signature lines. Vanessa spoke quickly, like speed could make it less ugly. "He thinks it'll help Jordan in the future. It's just an option." I stared at the paper until the words blurred. My throat tightened, not with anger, but with grief. This wasn't just disrespect from a father-in-law. This was my wife bringing me a knife and calling it a tool. I asked Vanessa if she agreed with it. She didn't say no. She said, "Can we at least talk about it?" I asked who she had already talked to. She hesitated. That hesitation answered me. She had already entertained it with Raymond. My voice stayed calm, but my hands shook. "You let him draft a legal document to erase me," I said. Vanessa flinched like I was being dramatic. "It's not erasing you," she said. "You'd still be his dad." That night, I didn't sleep. I listened to Jordan's breathing on the baby monitor, steady and innocent, and felt something shift inside me from endurance to clarity. I grew up watching men mistake silence for love, sacrifice for loyalty, humiliation for maturity. I promised myself I wouldn't repeat that. I wasn't going to scream or throw things. I wasn't going to beg Vanessa to value me. I was going to protect my son and my name with the same seriousness I used at work when something threatened the entire operation. Quiet, precise, documented. The next morning, I scheduled a consultation with a family attorney in Lanham. I didn't tell Vanessa first, because I knew she would try to stop it, not because she was evil, but because she was trained to keep her father comfortable. The attorney didn't hype me up. She asked facts. What was said, what was written, whether there were texts. I showed her screenshots of Raymond calling Jordan Little Whitfield, the draft document, Vanessa's messages where she didn't reject the idea, just tried to smooth it. The attorney nodded and said, "You're not overreacting. You're preventing a bigger problem." When I left that office, I sat in my car for 10 minutes and breathed until my hands steadied. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt sad that I had to defend my basic dignity inside my own marriage. But sadness didn't mean weakness. It meant I still cared. That afternoon, I did what I always did when a situation required control. I reduced it to a clean boundary, written clearly, with no insults, no profanity, no emotional rambling, nothing that could be twisted. One message, calm, final. I sent it to Raymond, and I copy Vanessa. "Mr. Whitfield, I am documenting that you have attempted to interfere with my child's legal identity and have repeatedly made statements about erasing my family name. Any further contact about changing my son's name will go through my attorney. Effective immediately, you are no longer authorized to represent my household in any financial or legal discussion. Confirm you understand." I read it twice before sending it. My finger hovered. Then I press send and put my phone down like setting down a heavy tool. Raymond read it quickly. He didn't reply. Vanessa stared at my phone like I had committed a crime. "Why would you bring lawyers into this?" she asked. "Because your father brought legal documents into my kitchen," I said. Vanessa's face tightened. "You're trying to embarrass him," she said. That word, embarrass, made me almost laugh because it revealed what mattered to her. Not what he did, not what I felt. His pride, his image. I told Vanessa I wasn't responsible for protecting a man who refused to respect me. That night, Vanessa slept facing the other direction. I lay awake, thinking about Jordan's future, school forms, doctor visits, the moments when his identity would be written down by other people. I thought about my father, who had passed away before he could. Hold Jordan, and how he would have looked at me if I allowed my son's name to be traded like a business deal. I thought about my mother, still in Prince George's County, who kept family records in a shoebox like they were sacred. I decided something else too. If Vanessa kept choosing Raymond, I would choose Jordan and myself. Karma didn't come like a movie. It came like a phone vibrating the next morning while I was on a conference call. Raymond called. I muted my mic and answered. His voice was sharp, trying to sound in control. "What did you do?" he demanded. I asked what he meant. He said, "My lender is asking questions. People are acting weird. Fix it." His assumption was automatic. If something went wrong for him, it must be because someone smaller dared to move. I kept my tone even. "I didn't do anything," I said. I set a boundary. Raymond breathed hard through his nose. "Don't play games," he said. "I know you made a call." I didn't correct his misunderstanding immediately. I let him sit in it because he needed to learn something. Boundaries are not sabotage. "Your financial problems are not my responsibility," I said. "But my child's identity is." Raymond lowered his voice like he was negotiating. "Adrian, listen," he said. "We're family. We can handle this privately." I almost told him, "We were family when you insulted my name too." Instead, I said, "If you contact Vanessa again about Jordan's last name, my attorney will respond." Raymond went quiet. Then he asked, "Who's your attorney?" That was the first time I heard uncertainty in him. What happened on Raymond's side was simple and realistic. When someone receives a legal notice, especially one involving interference with a child's legal identity, institutions become cautious. My attorney had sent a basic, professional inquiry that morning, not accusing Raymond of crimes, just demanding he cease contact and stop attempting to influence legal decisions about Jordan. It wasn't dramatic. It was clean. And because Raymond was in the middle of trying to close a property deal in Washington, D.C., anything that looked like potential liability made people slow down. Lenders don't care about arrogance. They care about risk. Raymond couldn't bully risk into disappearing. Raymond called Vanessa next, and I heard about it because she stormed into the kitchen with her phone in her hand like it was a weapon. "My dad said you're trying to ruin him," she said. I looked at her and said, "Your father's reacting to being told no." Vanessa paced, breath quick. "You could have just talked to him," she said. I pointed at the folder he had sent. "He skipped talking," I said. "He went straight to paperwork." Vanessa's eyes flashed. "He was trying to help," she insisted. I asked, "Help who?" She didn't answer. She slammed her phone down and said, "You're making me choose." "No," I said quietly. "You've already been choosing. I'm just finally responding." That sentence landed harder than any yelling would have. Vanessa stared at me as if she didn't recognize me. In her mind, I was the steady one who absorbed impact. I was the man who kept meals warm and tones calm. She didn't know what to do with the version of me who refused to be minimized. I told her we needed to talk about boundaries, counseling, and what it meant to be married. Vanessa said, "I don't want to talk. I want you to undo this." I told her I couldn't undo dignity once it was demanded. Over the next 2 weeks, Vanessa tried a different tactic, sweetness. She cooked my favorite breakfast. She touched my shoulder when she passed me in the hallway. She told me Jordan missed family dinners. But she never said, "I'm sorry." She never admitted she was wrong. The sweetness wasn't remorse. It was management. She wanted the household to return to its old shape, where Raymond could press down and I would stay quiet. I didn't punish her. I just stayed clear. I was present with Jordan, gentle with him, careful with my words. But inside I was building a private plan the way I built work schedules, stable, legal, prepared. Counseling continued, and the therapist noticed Vanessa's pattern. She asked Vanessa, "When your father insults Adrian, what do you fear will happen if you defend your husband?" Vanessa's jaw tightened. She said, "My dad will think I'm ungrateful." The therapist nodded. "So you trade your husband's dignity for your father's approval," she said softly. Vanessa snapped, "That's not fair." The therapist didn't argue. She asked, "Is it true?" Vanessa went quiet. I watched my wife struggle with a truth she didn't want to name. I didn't feel victorious. I felt heartbroken. One night, after Jordan fell asleep, Vanessa admitted something in a small voice. "My dad paid for college," she said. "He helped with my first apartment." I told her I respected that. She nodded, eyes wet, then said, "He reminds me of it." That sentence explained a lot. Raymond's generosity was never free. It came with strings. Vanessa had been trained to confuse control with care. I told her, "I'm not competing with your father. I'm building a family with you. But I won't be the place you dump the pressure of refusing to return to him." Vanessa whispered, "I don't know how to stand up to him." I said, "Then you're not ready to be married to me." Raymond's silence became strategic. He stopped coming by. He stopped sending listings. He stopped texting Little Whitfield. On the surface, it looked like he finally backed off. But I knew men like him don't retreat without plotting the next angle. Vanessa acted like the problem was solved. She told her friends I was being dramatic, but things were fine now. I didn't correct her publicly. I didn't want gossip. I wanted legal stability and emotional safety for Jordan. I started documenting everything more carefully, dates, messages, conversations. Not because I wanted war, but because I refused to be unprepared if Raymond tried again. The quiet lasted until a family event in Washington, D.C., at Vanessa's cousin's graduation dinner. Raymond showed up in a tailored suit, smiling too wide, acting like he had always respected me. He shook my hand firmly, looked me in the eye, and said, "Adrian." Correct name, clear voice. It was a performance for the room. Vanessa exhaled with relief, like the tension was gone. But as the night went on, Raymond made subtle comments about legacy, about what kind of men lead, about names that carry. He never apologized. He never acknowledged what he had done. He just shifted tactics, less obvious, more slippery. After dinner, as we were leaving, Raymond pulled Vanessa aside and spoke low. I watched her face change, tighten, then soften. When she walked back to me, she wouldn't meet my eyes. In the car, I asked what he said. Vanessa hesitated, then said, "Nothing." I told her not to lie to me. She snapped, "Why are you interrogating me?" I pulled over near a quiet street because I refused to argue while driving with Jordan in the back. I said, "Because secrets are how people move against you." Vanessa glared. Finally, she admitted Raymond had offered to set up a trust for Jordan, under one condition. The child's last name would be Whitfield. I felt my chest go cold. "And you didn't shut it down?" I asked. Vanessa said, "It's a trust, Adrian. It could help him." I looked at her, stunned by how easily she could package erasure as opportunity. I told her, "Jordan doesn't need money that requires him to deny his father." Vanessa said, "You're making this about pride." I said, "I'm making it about identity." Then I said something I had been holding back. "If you keep entertaining this, you are telling our son that his father is optional." Vanessa didn't answer. She stared out the window, jaw tight, like she was angry at me for naming the truth. That was the night I decided separation wasn't a threat. It was a path. I didn't rush. I didn't storm out. I started planning like an adult with a child, responsibilities, and a future. I opened a new bank account at a different branch. I rerouted my direct deposit. I listed my monthly expenses. I checked the lease terms. I asked my attorney about custody arrangements in Maryland and what documentation mattered. I took pictures of Jordan's room, his routines, his school notes, proof that I was actively parenting. I wasn't trying to take Jordan away from Vanessa. I was trying to ensure Jordan's stability if Vanessa kept letting Raymond destabilize our home. When Vanessa noticed changes, me scanning documents, me asking specific questions, she tried to regain control with accusation. "Are you planning something?" she demanded. I told her I was planning peace. She laughed bitterly. "So you're leaving because my dad doesn't like your last name?" she said, simplifying to make me look petty. I looked at her and said, "I'm leaving because you didn't like me enough to defend me." That sentence made her flinch. Then her face hardened again. "You're trying to punish me," she said. I replied, "I'm choosing myself. Punishment would be staying and letting resentment rot us from the inside." The next months were heavy. Vanessa moved between anger and avoidance. She didn't beg me to stay. She didn't apologize. She acted like I was abandoning her by refusing to accept humiliation. Meanwhile, I stayed consistent for Jordan: breakfast, school drop-offs, bedtime stories, weekend park trips in Largo. I kept my voice calm, even when my chest burned. I didn't speak badly about Vanessa to Jordan. I didn't mention Raymond. I refused to let my child become a messenger in adult conflict. Still, there were nights after Jordan slept when I sat alone on the couch, staring at the dark TV screen, mourning the life I thought I had. The court process wasn't dramatic. It was exhausting. Forms, schedules, proposed parenting plans. Vanessa's attorney tried to frame me as controlling, as if boundaries were hostility. My attorney kept it factual. We didn't throw mud. We presented documentation, the name change draft, the messages, the trust condition. The judge didn't need a speech. Judges respond to patterns and proof. Vanessa looked annoyed more than hurt, as if the legal system was inconvenient. Raymond didn't show up in court, but his influence was obvious in Vanessa's talking points. When it was over, we had a custody arrangement focused on Jordan's stability and my equal role as a father. My private success didn't look glamorous. It looked like a quiet apartment in Laurel with a second bedroom, painted a soft gray blue, Jordan's favorite. It looked like my own plates in my own cabinet, groceries arranged neatly, school uniforms folded clean. It looked like waking up early to pack lunches and driving to school without dread in my stomach. I didn't throw parties. I didn't announce anything. I just lived in a space where my name wasn't debated. Over time, my body relaxed in ways I didn't realize it had tightened. Peace changes you. It makes you realize how loud stress was. Vanessa struggled with a new reality. She would text me short, sharp messages about drop-off times, as if efficiency could cover the emotional mess. Sometimes she'd try to provoke me. Comments like, "Jordan asked why you left," or "My dad thinks you're petty." I didn't react. I responded only about logistics. Vanessa hated that. She wanted to fight because a fight would mean we were still tangled. My comment I had moved on mentally, even while co-parenting responsibly. And that was the part she couldn't control. I wasn't punishing her. I was simply no longer available for disrespect. Raymond reappeared months later, not at my door, but in the way he always did, through influence. Vanessa told me Raymond wanted to take Jordan on a weekend trip. I asked for details. Location, hotel, itinerary. Vanessa rolled her eyes like I was being difficult. I wasn't. I was being a father. I said any trip would require written details, plus confirmation that no conversations about Jordan's name would happen. Vanessa said, "You're obsessed." I replied, "I'm protective." She scoffed. Raymond didn't get the trip. He didn't like hearing no, but he had learned that legal boundaries weren't made of air. The apology I never expected came in a most ordinary place, a Target parking lot in Hyattsville during a custody handoff. It was a bright afternoon, sunlight reflecting off windshields, carts clacking against each other. Vanessa pulled in, Jordan hopped out with his backpack, ran to me excited, talking about a book fair at school. Then I noticed Raymond's SUV behind Vanessa's car. My stomach tightened instinctively. Raymond stepped out slowly, not with his usual swagger, but with something heavy on his face, fatigue, maybe. He watched Jordan hug me. For a second, Raymond's expression softened, almost pained. Vanessa went inside Target with Jordan to grab something quickly, leaving Raymond and me near the cart return. The silence between us was thick. Raymond cleared his throat. "Adrian," he said, careful, like he had practiced saying it correctly and didn't want to fail. I didn't respond right away. I just held his gaze. Raymond swallowed hard. Then he did something I had never seen him do. He lowered his eyes. "I was out of line," he said. "No joke. No excuse. About your name. About your family. About trying to rewrite things that weren't mine to touch." The word rewrite hit me because it was the truth. Raymond rubbed his palm over his mouth like he was trying to push pride back inside himself. "I can't undo what I said," he continued. "But I'm sorry I said it. I'm sorry I made you feel small in your own home." His voice wasn't dramatic. It was quieter, rougher, like he didn't know how to do remorse gracefully. His eyes looked glassy, and he blinked hard like he refused to let tears happen. "I don't expect you to forgive me fast," he added. "I just needed you to hear it from me." I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief that he finally named the harm. Anger that it took legal boundaries and consequences for him to reach this point. Raymond nodded once, like he was agreeing with himself. "Your name is your son's name," he said, "and it should have never been a question." He didn't ask me to shake his hand. He didn't ask for a hug. He didn't say, "Let's move forward." He just stood there and let the silence sit, like he understood he owed me discomfort. When Vanessa and Jordan returned, Raymond stepped back and gave us space, almost respectfully. Raymond opened his car door, then paused and looked at me again. "You did what a father is supposed to do," he said, barely above a breath. "I forgot my place." Then he got in and drove off. Vanessa didn't mention it on the ride home. She didn't say my dad apologized. She didn't say I'm sorry. She acted like the moment didn't exist, like acknowledging it would force her to face her own failure. But I carried it anyway, not as a trophy, not as revenge, as confirmation. Even Raymond had finally learned what Vanessa refused to. My name was not negotiable. The apology didn't fix my marriage. It wasn't magic. It didn't erase the nights I stared at documents in disbelief or the way Vanessa's silence at that dinner cracked something in me. But it did something important. It ended Raymond's narrative that I was less than. He had tried to reduce me to a name he could dismiss. Now he had to admit the name carried weight because I carried it with discipline. I didn't ruin him. I didn't expose him. I simply refused to fold. And in refusing, I forced him to see himself clearly, something prideful men avoid their entire lives. Vanessa, however, stayed complicated. She didn't like Raymond's apology because it highlighted her own behavior. She began to act colder, more transactional, as if the end of the marriage meant she could finally stop pretending to respect my boundaries. She pushed back on small things, school choices, schedule flexibility, testing how far she could go. I stayed consistent. I followed the parenting plan. I showed up early. I kept records. I kept my voice calm. The more stable I became, the more Vanessa seemed irritated by it, like my peace was an accusation. But I refused to carry guilt for choosing dignity over comfort. Over time, I noticed something in Jordan too. He became more confident, more talkative, like children do when they feel secure. He started bringing home drawings with Jordan Cole, written across the top in careful letters. The first time I saw it, my throat tightened, not because a name on paper was everything, but because it represented something deeper. He knew who he was. He wasn't being pulled between narratives. He was being raised by a father who would not disappear quietly and a mother who, even if imperfect, still loved him. And he had a grandfather who finally learned boundaries. My private transformation wasn't loud. It looked like promotions earned through competence, not through politics. It looked like finishing my bachelor's degree at night, one class at a time, because I wanted Jordan to grow up seeing follow through. It looked like building savings, paying down debt, and setting up a simple college fund under Jordan's full legal name. It looked like refusing to date recklessly just to prove I was fine. I was fine because I was stable, because I was present, because I was no longer living under constant disrespect. People sometimes confuse quiet with weak, but quiet is where real rebuilding happens. There were still hard moments. Holidays were split. School events required polite distance between Vanessa and me. Sometimes I'd catch Vanessa watching me interact with Jordan, and her eyes would flicker with something, regret, maybe, or just awareness of what she lost. But she never said it. She never owned it. I stopped needing her to. Part of growing is accepting that some people will never give you the closure you earned. They will only give you evidence. Vanessa had given me enough evidence to build a new life without her. I wasn't bitter. I was realistic. Raymond kept his apology private. He didn't call a family meeting. He didn't announce that he was wrong. He didn't try to turn it into a performance. In a strange way, that made it more believable. He began to respect drop-off boundaries. He stopped using Jordan as a symbol of Whitfield legacy. When he did see Jordan, he treated him like a child, not like an investment. Once, at a school event in Bowie, Raymond stood beside me and didn't speak over me. He listened. He nodded. It wasn't friendship. It wasn't close. It was basic respect, delayed but real. The message that made Raymond speechless wasn't powerful because it was harsh. It was powerful because it was clean. It forced him to understand that my calm wasn't permission. It was restraint, and restraint has limits. That message drew a line that couldn't be laughed off at a dinner table. It turned Raymond's arrogance into a liability he couldn't bully away. And it revealed the truth about Vanessa. She had been relying on my patience as if it were infinite. When I stopped offering it, the entire structure changed. People always notice boundaries when they are benefiting from your lack of them. I think about that first dinner sometimes. The ribs, the laughter that died in people's throats, Jordan looking up like he sensed something wrong. I remember the exact moment Vanessa said, "Dad, not tonight," instead of defending me. That moment is why I'll never pretend endurance equals love again. Love is protection. Love is loyalty out loud. Love is choosing your spouse in the room where it counts, not apologizing privately afterward. Vanessa didn't do that. Raymond eventually did, but only after consequences taught him humility. I learned something too. You don't need to be loud to be unmovable. On the day I picked Jordan up for a long weekend, he climbed into my car and asked, "Daddy, why is my name Cole?" I glanced at him in the rearview mirror, small face serious. I kept my tone gentle. Because it's our family name, I told him composedly. It's part of our story. It means we belong to each other. He nodded like he understood more than his age suggested. Then he smiled and said, "I like it." My chest loosened. That was the payoff. Not revenge. Not public validation. Just my son knowing himself without confusion. Later that night, after Jordan fell asleep in his Laurel bedroom, I sat at my kitchen table and looked at the quiet apartment around me. No tension. No fear of the next insult. No need to explain why dignity matters. I thought about my father and wished he could see this version of me. Steady, clear, unbothered by other people's arrogance. I thought about my mother and knew she would smile at the way I had protected our name without violence, without spectacle, without losing myself. This is what success looks like when you keep it private. A stable home, a present father, and a life no one else gets to rename. Raymond never became a perfect man. Vanessa never became the wife I needed. But karma still landed in a way that felt honest. The man who tried to erase me had to apologize to me, quietly, with no audience to impress. And the woman who let him do it had to live with the reality that I could not be controlled by guilt or tradition. I didn't win by humiliating anyone. I won by refusing to accept humiliation as the cost of love. One message drew the line. The next day proved that my name had weight. And every day after that, I carried it forward, peacefully, successfully, and on my own terms. If you respect quiet strength and clean boundaries, subscribe. These stories are for people who move smart, not loud. And share this with a father who's building stability without begging for respect. The end.